Why do so many couples start to feel more distant after 70, even when they've been together for decades? You've raised children, shared a life, built a home, but now, in what's supposed to be the most peaceful chapter, something feels off. Maybe it's tension, maybe it's silence, maybe it's just a feeling that the closeness you once had has faded. In this video, we're going to talk about a quiet truth, how resentment begins to grow in long-term relationships later in life, and more importantly, how you can protect your bond, heal old wounds, and reconnect deeply, even now. If this speaks to your heart, you're not alone, and there's still time to make this chapter one of the best yet. Number 1, the quiet shift, how resentment sneaks in. Have you ever woken up next to the person you've spent your whole life with and felt nothing, or worse, felt frustrated, distant, even angry, and you can't quite explain why? That feeling doesn't come out of nowhere. It doesn't happen overnight. It builds quietly, slowly, and often, without either of you noticing until it's already sitting between you like a wall. That's how resentment works. And for many of us, it begins to creep in after 70, just when we thought we'd finally earned peace in our relationships. I'm going to tell you something most people won't say out loud. It's normal to feel resentment in a long-term marriage, especially in later years. And it doesn't mean your love is gone. It doesn't mean your marriage is broken. It just means something needs your attention. I remember when I first noticed it in my own marriage. I was 72. My wife and I had been retired for a few years. The kids were long grown. We were finally in that stage of life we used to dream about: slow mornings, no alarm clocks, the freedom to do what we wanted. But instead of feeling relaxed and connected, I started feeling irritated. Every little thing she did got under my skin. The way she asked questions, the way she repeated stories. Even the sound of her stirring tea started to wear on me. I felt guilty about it. After all, she hadn't changed that much, but something inside me had. I started pulling back, spending more time outside, finding excuses to avoid long conversations, and she noticed. Of course she did. After nearly 5 decades together, we could read each other without saying a word, but we weren't reading each other with kindness. We were reading each other with suspicion, defensiveness. One evening, we had a fight over something ridiculous, some forgotten item at the grocery store, but it wasn't really about the milk. It was about years of little things we'd swallowed down instead of talking through. That's what happens. You tell yourself, it's not worth bringing up, again and again, until one day everything feels worth a fight or nothing does. See, retirement brings something no one prepares you for: more time together. That might sound like a gift, and in many ways it is, but it also means less space. The distractions are gone. The busy schedules are gone. The roles you played, provider, caregiver, problem solver, they shift. Sometimes they vanish. And suddenly you're left sitting across the table from someone you've known for 50 years, asking yourself, who are we now? This is the quiet shift where resentment sneaks in. Not because of one big betrayal, but because of hundreds of small, unmet needs, unresolved tensions, unspoken disappointments. Over time, those things pile up, and if you don't unpack them, they harden into distance. I want to say something to anyone listening who feels this happening. You're not alone, and you're not a bad spouse for feeling it. Resentment doesn't mean the love is gone. It means the connection needs tending. It means there's something under the surface asking for your attention. There's a quote I heard once that stuck with me. Resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to get sick. I know that feeling. You carry the anger inside, hoping somehow they'll notice, they'll apologize, they'll fix it without you having to say a word. But it doesn't work that way. It just grows silently until one day you find yourself resenting the very presence of the person you once couldn't wait to marry. My friend Roger went through something similar. He and his wife had been married for 45 years. When he retired, he thought they'd spend every day together, enjoying their golden years. But instead, they started bickering more than ever. He told me one day, "I don't know what's wrong with her. She's just always in my way." I asked him what changed. He paused and said, "Well, maybe it's me." And that's the truth most of us avoid. Often, the resentment we feel toward our spouse is tied to changes within ourselves. Aging brings its own frustrations: loss of independence, physical decline, fear of irrelevance. And sometimes, without realizing it, we take those feelings out on the person closest to us. There was a day when I finally admitted this to my wife. We were sitting outside, watching the sun go down. I told her, "I've been short with you, and it's not fair. I think I've been angry not at you, but at getting older, at slowing down, at not feeling like myself anymore." She nodded and said, "I've been feeling the same way." It was the first honest conversation we'd had in weeks, and it changed everything. We didn't fix everything that night, but we finally understood that the tension between us wasn't really us. It was the weight of aging, of transition, of unmet needs that we'd ignored for too long. Let me take a moment right here to say, if this is resonating with you, if you felt that quiet drift in your relationship or the sting of unspoken frustrations, take a second to support Glowing Age. Like this video and subscribe to the channel. This is a place for real talk, for truth, for healing. We're not here to pretend everything's perfect. We're here to grow even now. So how do you know resentment is building in your relationship? You start noticing the little things more than the big things. You roll your eyes more often than you smile. You feel relief when they leave the room and tension when they enter. You avoid talking about anything meaningful. And when you do argue, it's rarely about the thing you're actually mad about. It's not that your spouse is doing something terribly wrong. It's that the emotional air between you has gotten stale. There's no space to breathe, no room to be vulnerable. And the solution isn't found in grand romantic gestures. It starts with small, honest ones, like admitting when you're tired, asking how they're really feeling, saying "I'm sorry" without explaining it away, saying "thank you" even when you think it's expected. Resentment sneaks in when connection slips away. But connection can always be rebuilt if you're willing to be honest, to be gentle, to remember that both of you are carrying more than you show. What I've learned is this: love in your 70s isn't about butterflies or passion or even excitement. It's about tenderness. It's about sitting in silence and knowing you're still together. It's about forgiving each other for the things you didn't know how to say 20 years ago. So if you feel that distance growing, don't wait for it to turn into silence. Speak, gently, honestly, with love. Because resentment doesn't mean the end. It means it's time for a new beginning. Number 2, the root causes of late-life resentment. You know what's surprising? Resentment in later life isn't usually about big betrayals or life-shattering arguments. It's about the small things left unspoken, unresolved, and repeated over the years. After 70, many couples find themselves facing emotional friction that they never expected. And when you dig deep enough, you begin to see that the roots of resentment go far beyond household chores or snappy comments. They live in unmet emotional needs, shifting identities, and the quiet fears that come with growing older. One of the most common sources of resentment is simply this: feeling unappreciated. After decades together, it's easy to stop saying thank you, to stop noticing. We assume our partner knows how we feel. We stop giving compliments. We stop asking questions. We start taking each other for granted. I can't tell you how many times I've heard someone say, "I do everything around here and it feels like it doesn't matter." That feeling doesn't come out of nowhere. It's born from years of doing, giving, showing up without acknowledgement. A man I know, Charles, cared for his wife through a long illness. Every morning he cooked her breakfast, helped her get dressed, sat with her during every appointment. When I asked him how he was holding up, he said, "I'm tired, and sometimes I feel invisible." He didn't resent his wife. He resented how invisible his effort had become. On the other side of the coin, I've spoken to wives who say they've spent their entire lives caring for everyone else, kids, husband, aging parents, and now in their older years they finally want to be seen, heard, cared for themselves. But their husbands, worn down or emotionally distant, aren't present in that way, and that creates a quiet ache. We don't talk about this enough, how aging can trigger fear. Fear of being alone, fear of losing relevance, fear of decline. And often, instead of sharing those fears with each other, we internalize them, or worse, we project them onto our spouse. Your partner forgets something you told them yesterday. Suddenly, you're not just annoyed, you're worried about memory loss, you're scared. But instead of saying that, you lash out, you snap, you accuse. He's always sitting on the couch, watching TV. You're not just frustrated about the remote, you're wondering, is this really how we'll spend the rest of our lives? We don't resent the person necessarily. We resent the feeling of being stuck, of being unacknowledged, of being scared and not knowing how to say it. Then there's the dynamic of retirement. When two people retire at different times or in different ways, their routines no longer match. One might want rest, the other wants adventure. One wants silence, the other craves conversation. Suddenly, the rhythm you once shared becomes a mismatch and no one knows how to reset it. And let's not forget health changes. Physical limitations can be frustrating for both people in the relationship. When one partner becomes the caregiver, resentment can bubble up quickly if the balance shifts too far without support. It's a tender thing, being needed all the time. It's noble, but it's also draining. I knew a woman named Bernice. Her husband had a stroke and she became his full-time caregiver. She told me, "I love him, I'll never leave him, but I feel like I lost the man I married and no one asks how I'm doing." That kind of silence, that kind of sacrifice, it wears on the heart. Sometimes resentment comes from the sacrifices we made years ago, ones we thought we were okay with at the time. Maybe one partner gave up a career, or dreams of travel, or certain freedoms. And later, when life slows down, those choices come back around with new questions. Did I give up too much? Did we do this the right way? Even long-held regrets can show up as blame toward a spouse, not because they were truly at fault, but because they were closest. And then there's loneliness. Yes, even in marriage, especially in marriage. It's a quiet kind of lonely when you're living side by side but not sharing the deeper parts of yourself anymore. When conversations become shallow, when eye contact fades, when laughter is rare. All of these are roots of resentment. They don't grow in a day, but they do grow when left unchecked. And they wrap themselves around the heart, making it harder to feel the love that's still there. So what do? First, you become aware. You stop pretending it's just about the dishes or the thermostat. You ask yourself, what's really bothering me? What need isn't being met? What am I not saying? And just as importantly, you ask, what might they be carrying that I haven't seen? Sometimes, even asking that quietly to yourself can shift the energy. Let me leave you with this thought. Resentment doesn't grow in the presence of empathy. The more you understand your partner and yourself, the less space there is for blame. The roots of resentment may run deep, but so can the roots of love if we choose to water them again. It's not too late to dig beneath the surface, to understand what's really going on, to start listening again, not just with your ears, but with your heart. Number 3, common signs you're holding resentment. You can't fix what you don't recognize. And in my experience, resentment in a relationship often shows up in quiet, subtle ways long before it becomes obvious. That's why this part matters so much. Knowing the signs early can help you protect your connection before things start to break down. I want to start with this. Just because you've been with someone for decades doesn't mean you always know what they're feeling. And just because you feel something doesn't mean you fully understand it yet. That's how resentment works. It hides behind other emotions. Let me tell you what it looked like in my life. I started noticing that I was more irritable around my wife. I wasn't yelling, but I was short with her. I sighed more. I rolled my eyes without realizing it. I'd walk out of the room when she was mid-sentence, not to be cruel, but because I just didn't have the energy to engage. And here's the thing, I didn't even think I was upset with her. I just felt tired, disconnected. It wasn't until she said one night, "It feels like you don't even like me anymore," that it hit me. That's the first sign, emotional distance. You stop laughing together, you stop having real conversations. You start living like roommates instead of partners, the warmth fades. Another sign, annoyance over small things. You get irritated over things that never used to bother you. How they chew, the way they load the dishwasher, the questions they ask. It's not about those things, it's about something deeper, something unspoken. But instead of dealing with that, your mind finds little ways to release the tension. Then there's silent treatment, not as punishment, but as avoidance. You don't bring things up anymore because it doesn't feel worth the effort, or because you're afraid it'll turn into a fight. That silence grows like a wall. You might sleep in the same bed, eat the same meals, go through the same motions, but emotionally, you're living separate lives. You might also notice passive comments, sarcasm, jokes that aren't really jokes. Things like, "Well, you always do what you want anyway," or "Why ask me? You don't really care what I think." These aren't just offhand remarks. They're unspoken pain trying to find a voice. One couple I know used to finish each other's sentences. Now they don't even make eye contact at dinner. He says things like, "You wouldn't understand," and she just nods. That's another sign, giving up on being understood, when you stop trying to explain yourself because you don't believe your partner will listen or care. And then there's the physical side, a lack of affection, not just intimacy but simple touch, holding hands, sitting close, gentle gestures. Resentment has a way of making you pull away physically. You stop reaching out because emotionally you've already stepped back. Here's something else I've seen and felt myself, feeling trapped. It's not that you want to leave your partner, it's that you feel stuck. Like this is just how it's going to be and there's no point trying to change it. That sense of resignation is dangerous, because once you accept emotional distance as normal, you stop fighting for connection. And when no one's fighting for it, the relationship quietly dies, not with a bang, but with a fade. So what do you do when you recognize these signs in yourself or your partner? First, don't panic, don't blame, don't jump to conclusions, just acknowledge it. Quietly, honestly, say to yourself, "Something's off, and I care enough to look at it." Then ask questions, not to them yet, but to yourself. What am I missing in this relationship? What have I stopped giving? What have I stopped asking for? Sometimes just those questions open a door. Sometimes you realize you've both been waiting, hoping the other would notice, speak up, reach out. And when the time feels right, speak. Gently, no accusations, just observations. "I feel like we haven't really talked in a while. I miss when we used to laugh together. I think we've both been holding in a lot." Those words might feel awkward, vulnerable, but they're bridges. And the sooner you start building them, the easier it is to cross the distance. Let me take a second to remind you, if this conversation matters to you, if it's opening your eyes or your heart in some way, please like this video and subscribe to Glowing Age. This community is for you, for people who still believe in love, even after all these years. For people who know that it's never too late to reconnect. Look, I know relationships at this stage in life are complicated. You're not the same people you were in your 30s or 40s. You've been through too much. But that's not a weakness. That's a foundation. You've built a life. And yes, maybe there are cracks in it now, but that doesn't mean it's broken beyond repair. Recognizing the signs of resentment isn't about finding fault. It's about finding your way back to each other, back to the place where you feel safe, seen, valued. Sometimes all it takes is one person deciding to notice again, to care again, to reach across the table even if their hand has been slapped away before. If you see any of these signs in your relationship, don't ignore them. Don't wait for a perfect moment. Start small, start today, because love at this age isn't about perfection, it's about presence, and it's still worth fighting for. Number 4, how to talk about the hard stuff without blame. There's a moment in every long marriage where you realize that the things you haven't said are sometimes louder than the words you do speak. And after 70, when the distractions of raising kids and building careers are behind you, there's nowhere left to hide from those silences. But silence doesn't have to be the end of the story. It can be the beginning of a better one if you learn how to talk again. Not just about the weather or your medication or what's on TV, but about the hard things, the real things. Now I won't pretend it's easy. Speaking honestly when you've spent years swallowing things down takes courage, it takes patience, and it takes grace. I remember when my wife and I first started trying to talk about the deeper stuff again, we were both out of practice. I'd say something and she'd get defensive. She'd say something and I'd feel attacked. We weren't trying to hurt each other. We just didn't know how to talk without touching old bruises. What helped us wasn't fancy advice from a book. It was slowing down, speaking simply, and listening, not just waiting for our turn to talk, but really listening. One evening I said to her, "I feel like we've been walking around each other, like roommates." She looked surprised, not offended, just surprised, and she nodded. "I feel that too." That was it, no argument, just a shared truth spoken out loud, and it cracked something open. If you're carrying resentment, or if you suspect your partner is, there's only one way to move forward: you have to talk about it. But the way you talk matters, because blame builds walls, but honesty builds bridges. Here are a few things I've learned the hard way about having hard conversations without turning them into fights. First, speak in I statements. Not "you always make me feel invisible," but "I've been feeling invisible lately and I think it's been weighing on me." See the difference? One pushes, the other invites. Second, avoid absolutes. Words like always and never close the door before the conversation even begins. No one wants to be defined by their worst days. Third, pick your moment. Don't try to talk when you're already angry or when something just happened. Let the emotions settle. Choose a quiet time, a walk, a car ride, a peaceful evening. The setting matters more than you think. Fourth, don't try to solve everything in one conversation. You're not trying to win, you're trying to understand. Sometimes the best thing you can say is, "I didn't know you felt that way. Thank you for telling me." And then there's listening, real listening. That means not interrupting, not planning your next sentence while they're still talking, not jumping in to defend yourself, just hearing them. When I finally told my wife I'd been feeling resentful, not because of her, but because I was scared of getting older, of losing myself, she held my hand. She didn't try to fix it. She just said, "Thank you for telling me." That moment mattered more than 1,000 solutions. You might be thinking, "But my spouse doesn't like talking," or "they shut down when I try." I hear you, and that's hard, but don't give up. Sometimes we expect big emotional talks, but the truth is, connection is rebuilt through small, gentle conversations that happen again and again. Start with something simple. "How are you really doing these days?" Or "What's been on your mind lately?" Not every conversation has to dig up old wounds. Sometimes just asking how they're feeling shows them that you care. And if they open up, even just a little, treat that moment like gold. Don't rush in with a fix, just honor it. Let me say this too, it's okay to write things down. If the words don't come easily out loud, write a note, leave a letter. Sometimes writing lets us speak from the heart without the fear of getting it wrong in real time. And remember, tone matters, not just what you say, but how you say it. Softness goes a long way. I've seen couples who were barely speaking find their way back through quiet honesty. Through handwritten letters, shared tears, soft laughter after years of silence. Not because their problems disappeared, but because they finally started facing them together. There's one last thing I'll say about talking through resentment. Be patient. You didn't get to this place overnight. You won't fix it overnight either. But every honest conversation is a step. Every moment of truth is a seed planted, and over time, those seeds grow into trust again. It's not about being perfect, it's about being present. You can still choose each other, you can still speak love in a new language, and you can still write the next chapter not from pain, but from understanding. Start talking again, even if it's awkward, even if it's slow, because the conversation you avoid today might be the one that saves your connection tomorrow. Number 5, rebuilding connection through small acts. It's easy to believe that fixing a strained relationship takes some grand gesture, a trip, a gift, a dramatic apology. But after 70, I've learned that healing often begins in the small, almost invisible moments. The truth is, rebuilding connection doesn't start with fireworks. It starts with quiet, consistent care. When you've been with someone for decades, the novelty fades. That's natural. But so does the intentionality, and that's what we have to bring back. You can't reignite closeness if you're not feeding it with small acts every day. Let me tell you a story. There's an older gentleman I know named Al. He and his wife had been through some rough years. Health scares, family drama, the works. They'd grown apart slowly over time. One day he told me, "I still love her, but I don't think she knows it anymore." So I asked him, "When's the last time you told her?" He paused, then smiled sadly. "It's been a while." The next day he wrote her a short note, just a few lines, left it on her pillow. The following week she left him one back. That was the beginning of their new rhythm. Every week they'd leave a note, sometimes serious, sometimes funny, but always intentional. Now I'm not saying notes will fix everything, but I am saying this: when you feel resentment growing in your marriage, doing something kind without expecting anything back can change everything. Start with these small things. Say thank you even for the things you've taken for granted. Thank you for making the tea. Thanks for remembering to bring the mail in. Touch more, a gentle hand on the shoulder, a light squeeze of the hand while watching TV. Physical closeness reminds you both that you're still here, still choosing each other. Do something they like, even if it's not your thing. Watch their favorite show, sit outside if they like the garden. These moments send a powerful message. I see you, I care. Share a memory, bring up a good story from the past. It reconnects you with the life you've built and reminds both of you of better days. You see, resentment creates space, distance, but small acts of kindness shrink that space. They whisper, I'm still here. And here's something else I've learned. Sometimes we wait too long. We think they know how I feel, or they'll say something if they want to talk. But pride has no place in a long-lasting relationship, because love is not a feeling we fall into, it's a choice we keep making. When you've built a life together, love takes work. Gentle, patient, daily work, but it's the kind of work that restores you, that fills you back up. If your marriage has been feeling dry, don't wait for a dramatic fix. Begin with the next small act. Pick up their favorite snack. Leave the TV off and ask how their day really went. Offer a genuine compliment. Clean something without being asked. Smile first. And if it feels awkward at first, that's okay. Awkwardness means you're trying something new, and trying is the opposite of giving up. You can also return to old routines. Was there a song you used to dance to, a walk you used to take together after dinner, a game you played, a show you watched? Revisit those moments, not for nostalgia's sake, but for reconnection. My wife and I started sitting on the porch again every evening, just like we did when we were first married. No phones, no TV, just the two of us watching the sun disappear behind the trees. At first, it felt a little strange, but now it's our favorite part of the day. These moments are where resentment loses its grip. When you show up in small ways, day after day, the walls between you begin to soften. You begin to feel like teammates again. Let me pause here and say, if this resonates with you, if it makes you think of someone you love, someone you've maybe grown distant from, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to Glowing Age. We're building something meaningful here, a place to rediscover the beauty in long-term love. You don't have to fix everything at once, but you do have to begin. Ask yourself, what's one small, kind thing I can do today? Then do it, and tomorrow do another, and the next day another. Before you know it, you'll find yourselves talking more, laughing more, forgiving more. And you'll remember what it feels like to be seen, to be chosen, to belong to someone again. Not because of one big change, but because of many small ones. That's the beauty of love in our later years. It's not loud, it's steady, it's intentional, it's built on small acts that say over and over, I'm still here, I still choose you. Number 6, when to seek help and why it's not too late. Sometimes, even when we've done all we can, when we've tried to talk, when we've made the small efforts, when we've softened our tone, there's still a heaviness between us, a wall that won't quite come down. And that's when we have to talk about something most couples avoid for far too long: asking for help. Let me tell you right now, asking for help doesn't mean you've failed. In fact, it means the opposite. It means you care enough about your relationship to fight for it, to invite someone in not to fix you, but to guide you back to each other. In our generation, we weren't taught to share our private business. Marriage was sacred, and sacred meant silent, but sometimes silence becomes a cage, and there's freedom in speaking your truth out loud with someone who knows how to listen. I remember the first time I suggested couples counseling to a friend of mine. He looked at me like I'd asked him to jump off a cliff. We've been married 50 years, he said. If we can't figure it out by now, what's the point? I told him gently, the point is that you don't have to keep trying alone. Eventually they went, just a few sessions, but it was enough. Enough to hear each other differently. Enough to say things they hadn't been able to say in years. Enough to remember why they were still together. Counseling isn't just for young couples in crisis. It's for anyone who's grown weary of the same patterns, the same misunderstandings, the same hurts that keep showing up. It's not about blame, it's about insight. There are also wonderful senior-focused relationship groups, support circles, and even clergy or community mentors who offer a safe space to talk. Sometimes, just knowing you're not the only ones facing these challenges makes all the difference. Because here's the truth, resentment thrives in isolation, but it shrinks in the light of connection. If counseling isn't an option or doesn't feel right, start with a simple agreement. Say to your partner, let's try again. Let's check in with each other once a week. No blame, just listening. Ask questions like, how are you feeling lately? Is there anything you've been holding back? What's something I could do to make you feel more supported? These aren't magical questions, but they open doors, and sometimes that's all you need. And let's talk about forgiveness, because no conversation about resentment is complete without it. Forgiveness isn't forgetting. It's choosing to let go of the grip a past hurt has on your present peace. And sometimes, that forgiveness has to begin with yourself. Maybe you didn't speak up when you should have. Maybe you weren't always the partner you wanted to be. Maybe you shut down, or lashed out, or walked away emotionally, even if you stayed physically. Okay, that was then, this is now. You're still here, you're still breathing. That means there's time. Time to repair, to soften, to begin again. If you're the one who's been hurt, if you've been carrying pain for years, please know this: healing doesn't mean pretending it didn't happen. It means giving yourself permission to grow beyond it, not for them, for you. The moment you say, I don't want to carry this anymore, you begin to take your life back. And if you're the one who caused the hurt, own it, gently, sincerely. A real apology doesn't make excuses, it simply says, I see now and I'm sorry. Sometimes those 5 words can crack open a door that's been shut for decades. Let me tell you this, from someone who's lived long enough to know, it's never too late to choose each other again. Even after distance, even after silence, even after resentment. Your love story didn't end the day things got hard. It ends only if you stop turning toward each other. Take that small step, whether it's a conversation, a gesture, or the courage to say, let's get help. Because the best kind of love isn't the one that never struggles. It's the one that struggles and keeps showing up anyway. So ask for help if you need it. Apologize if you must. Forgive when you're ready. And most of all, believe that even now, your relationship is worth saving. Because after 70, what matters most isn't how perfect your marriage looks from the outside. It's how safe, how loving, how honest it feels on the inside. And you can still build that. One day, one word, one hand held at a time. If you felt any of what we talked about today, resentment, distance, silence, I want you to know this: your relationship isn't broken. It's simply asking for your care. After 70, love looks different, but it's still love. Softer, wiser, quieter, but no less powerful. You've come this far together, and that means there's still so much to fight for. Thank you for spending time with me and with Glowing Age today. If this message gave you clarity, comfort, or courage, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Let's keep building a community where aging is not just about getting older, it's about growing stronger together.